We got problems. This guy right here. Welcome back to the show. If you remember in the video where I did the bottom end, you'll remember that I found a bearing that had a groove in it. Thought it was maybe a piece of dirt or debris that got in there.
There was a piece of dirt or debris of some kind that got in between the journal and the bearing.
But apparently it wasn't. I don't know what made me think of it or decide to double check some things. Maybe it's my attention deficit box disorder, but something told me that I need to take a look. So that groove in that bearing was not from a piece of dirt. It was, there's a nick in the journal. It's a small one, but it was enough to cause an issue. Of course, it was the only one left when I finally found it, because I started at the opposite end.
So on piston number one.
So now I took some 1000 grit and just tried to polish down the high spots where my nail would catch what was obviously digging into the bearing. And I think I got it. My nail's no longer catching, but I'm going to have to swap out those bearings on both the rod and the cap. So I'm going to get to work on this, hopefully get this back together for the last time so that I can move on to other things. All right, I got updates. So like I said, I used 1000 grit and tried to polish down any high spots that were around that nick in the journal. I took a spare bearing, put it back in the cap, put the cap back on, rotated the engine a couple times, and it looks like I got it this time. So I just want to show this for illustrative purposes here. This is the original bearing that had the groove in it. You can actually see an imprint of the nick in the crank. And you can see that it caught it pretty good while it was rotating and left a pretty decent groove there that my nail can catch. This is the one I took out today. And you can see basically the same thing. There's an imprint there of the nick. And it's right in line. Same spot. Groove looks exactly the same as the first one. So it in fact was not a piece of dirt. So obviously, disaster averted. I was hoping I didn't have to take it back out and take it back to the machine shop for a polish, but it doesn't look like I'm going to need to, so that's a good thing. But again, you know, it's just, I'm not an expert here. I'm learning as I go too, just trying to pay attention and hopefully not miss anything that can cause a problem. Obviously, this would have caused, or could have caused, a major problem, and we don't want that. So I'm going to get this put back together with 2 new bearings, and we'll be able to move on to other things. All right, so now we got that situation rectified. It's time to move on to the front end and get timing components and all that stuff installed. I will be using a balance shaft elimination kit on this, so it has a few more components that need installing. So we're going to get started on that. But first thing I got to do is do a little housekeeping here.
Housekeeping?
To get my work area cleaned up before I lose my mind. And then we'll spend some time scraping off a little bit of gasket material and then just getting everything ready to be installed. Okay, I think we can call that clean enough. There's some residual darkening where the gasket was, but I cannot feel anything. But for now, That looks pretty good.
Several days later.
What we're going to do next is start assembling the front end of the block. Timing components, including a balance shaft elimination kit. This PCI timing component kit comes with everything you need. All new timing components, and it includes all of the components needed for the balance shaft elimination. Balance shaft elimination is a popular modification for these cars. It's known to increase oil pressure, one less failure point, and some suggest that it's a horsepower increase with less rotating parts. So let's get this thing cracked open and we'll get started. So it does come with instructions. This kit was designed to be installed by a professional mechanic. Skip over that part. With timing cover removed, remove balance shaft parts, which include balance shaft chain, gears, and guides. I've already done that stuff. Oil pump is removed. Using Permatex or like sealer, install the large deep cup expansion plug in the front bore. That is so this oiling hole gets blocked off here and you don't have a massive oil leak into where your upper balance shaft used to reside. So one end of this has a taper to it. So that will be the end that will go in first. We'll take some Permatex Ultra Black. Actually, I'm going to clean this off first. All right. So we'll take some of this Permatex Ultra Black and we'll smear a little bit on here. Or if I, cut the tip off properly. Just get it started there. You just want to get it tapped flush, and then we'll clean off the excess. Okay, so next step, install the oil pump bore plug as follows. Insert the threaded end of the plug from the engine side of the pump. Use your old balance shaft bolt with some thread lock or Loctite to secure the plug from the front of the oil pump. While holding the plug in square end and vise or by wrench, tighten the bolt to 40 to 45 foot-pound. Oil pump plug must be tightened to correct factory torque to prevent it from coming loose and falling into the engine. So, factory torque spec for this is 50 foot-pound, I believe, which should be more than enough. You shouldn't have to worry about it backing out. I don't think I'm going to use thread lock just in case there's some reason that I need to ever take this apart again.
Don't you dare.
I don't want to deal with snapping bolts off. All right, so that's this piece here. Grab the oil pump. Okay, so the threaded end will go in from the back of the pump, like so. And we'll take one of our bolts, thread that in. And we're going to torque this to 50 foot-pounds. Reinstall the oil pump with new plug in place using a new gasket and be sure that the surfaces are clean and free of all old material. Already done the cleaning, so we'll grab gasket. So the gasket kit comes with both gasket types for both turbo and non-turbo applications. You want to make sure that you're using the correct gasket with the correct oil pump. So the turbo application with the oil pump, or I'm sorry, with the oil pickup tube that enters the oil pump, is the one that has teardrop shape opening in it. This is the correct gasket to use for this application. This is the non-turbo application gasket. Pop out these little knockouts here.
Eventually.
Important to remember here, no silicone. None whatsoever. Put it down, walk away. There are 2 locator dowels that will help you get this to where it's supposed to be. So you don't need to worry about particular alignment. It'll fall into place. But you do need to consider the length of your bolts so you don't snap any bolt heads off. A 10 millimeter bolt, torque to 8 foot-pounds.
Meanwhile.
In preparation for getting the head put together, I want to see if I can make a vacuum tester, if I can test valve seat seal. I'm just going to try to fudge something together here. I already have a vacuum pump, and I don't want to spend $100 on the vacuum plates from Amazon. So I'm going to see if I can fab up something on my own here that will work just the same. Piece of Lexan. I'm going to cut out a 4-inch circle, and then I have some rubber pads that I'm going to attach to it. Alright, so I took my 4-inch hole saw, cut out a 4-inch round piece of Lexan. I get this cleaned up a little bit, and then get the rubber attached to it. Just going to lightly touch the edges of this with the dead flap wheel. This out to 11:30 seconds so I can tap it for 1/8 NPT. Not really sure how well this is going to tap. I think it's plastic, but I'm going to try this before spending money on any other tools. These rubber squares are just those furniture pads you put down to keep your furniture from sliding. See if that'll work out. I tapped it, but big deal. A 1/8 inch hex nipple, 1/4 inch coupler, 1/4 to 1/8 hex bushing, and a 3/16 by 1/4 inch closed barb adapter. So let's see if we can make all this work. Alright, I'm back. This is what it looks like all put together. Let's get the rubber on here. Rough her up a little bit with some sandpaper. Okay, so again, this is brand new head casting. It's got the M28 casting on it there, here on the front. Comes with new cam towers. It comes with valve guides and seats already installed. And as with everything that's brand new like this, you just want to take a minute to go over it, clean it, blow it out, make sure there's no shavings anywhere. When I did pull this out of the bag, I did find this metal shaving. So it's all common stuff. I mean, these are machined before they get shipped. So there's always a chance they're going to find some stuff in here. So just take the time to clean it out real good before you move forward with assembly. These. So I don't forget their orientation. In this box. As is standard procedure, we'll take some brake cleaner and we'll just wipe everything down. So here we are a few days later. Going to finally get a chance to get this head assembled. So as I said previously, this is a brand new head casting. My previous head was cracked between the valve seats in 2 places, which is pretty common for these, pretty commonplace for them to crack. So I have the stainless steel valves, both intake and exhaust, new valve seals, valve retainers, valve keepers, valve spring seats, and valve springs. This is the tool I'll be using to compress the springs and get the keepers in, and not exactly sure how well this is going to work. It's a cheap Amazon deal. I believe I read somewhere on the group pages to stay away from these things because they're a pain, but I guess we'll find out. So we'll start with valve seals. We'll get all them on. Of course, don't put them on dry. I got one on already. Just wanted to see how easy it was to get them on there. I did read that you can use a 12 millimeter socket to tap them on. So that's what I'm going to do for the rest of them. There is a tool that's out there for these, specifically for these valve seals, but I'd have to buy it from eBay and wait for it to come in, and I just want to get this all assembled. So just take it easy, be careful, and we'll get these installed. These are the new valve seals. And this bag of valve stem seals came with the gasket kit that comes from that Randy sells over at Dad's Engine Parts. So let's get a little bit of oil on these and we'll get them all installed. These two only go on so far. There's a lip on the inside of them that will stop as soon as it reaches the top of the valve guides. So you don't want to go nuts with these. Just tap them on until they stop, and then that's it. There should be a small space, maybe 1/8 of an inch between the bottom of the valve stem seal and the head. Now that our valve stem seals are in, we'll place our spring seats in, and we'll start with one side at a time. These spring seats do have a directional indicator on them. Grab one of our valves. We don't want to install anything dry once again. So put a little bit of oil on the valve stem. And gently pop it up through. Grab your spring. And your retainer. Now comes the fun part. Want to make sure that this is aligned with your valve stem. So as you compress it, you don't hit the top of the valve stem. And just start applying some pressure. Again, trying to keep everything aligned. And then you want to compress it down far enough to where you can get your valve keepers in, but you don't want to compress it so far that your valve retainer impacts your valve stem seal. So that looks pretty good there. Grab your retainer, 2 of them. Careful not to lose any of these. You want to ensure that they are seated properly, or when you take that compressor tool off, these things are going to go sailing. And this is where it's helpful to have your wife's best pair of tweezers handy to put these in. A little dip in oil. I guess this is going to fight me every step. There we go. Slowly let off pressure. Just to ensure that those locks are in where they're supposed to be. There's one valve installed. So we'll repeat the process for the next 3 on the exhaust side and then all 4 on the intake side. Now, with any head assembly, you want to vacuum test after you have all your valves installed to make sure that your valves are making a good seal at the seat. So I guess it's time to find out if the valve seat seal tester that I concocted is going to be functional. Let's see what this does. I don't know if this is gonna give me enough of a seal, or if this pump is even good enough to do this. Should be. Okay, so I tightened some connections. They're a little too loose.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
And we're getting good vacuum now. So let's run through this test one more time. It looks like we got a pretty good seal there. Try number 3. Looking good there. Looking good there. And looking good there. Okay, we'll jump over to the exhaust side. Start with number 1. Look good there. We're not pulling any vacuum there on number 2 exhaust. Try number 3. Look good there. And number 4. It looks good there. All right, so number 3 exhaust has an issue. Or I'm sorry, number 2 exhaust has an issue. All right, so let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. Okay, so I found the problem, and it's not even a problem. So this port here crosses through the head and into the number 2 exhaust port. I don't know if it's possible to see inside there or not, but it's right inside here. So I was basically trying to pull vacuum with an open port here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this plug in here. See if that seals that up. And see if we get a good vacuum. And that's open. Oh, if I plug it in. Yep, there we go. Close this valve. I'm not putting any extra pressure on this either. I'm just holding it in place. Yeah, looks like we're good there too. All right, cool. I don't have to do any valve lapping. Everything looks good there, so I can continue on with the rest of the assembly. I'm also going to vacuum test from this angle and do the entire combustion chamber. So we got something leaking there. However, I think it's probably this plug that I have in here. May not be sealing well enough. The spark plug port. Let's give it another shot here. Close this off. So I am losing vacuum there, but again, I feel like there's something else at play here. And it's held it there for pretty good. Yeah, so it's still losing it through the spark plug hole, so I think that's all that is. It's not the valves. What I could do... Come on, give me...
Firmly grasp it.
What I could do... I could stick another plug in from this side. Where'd that gray one go? So let's throw this gray one in here. Oh, it's not going to let me. I could throw another white one though, because they should seal before they touch. right, let's give this another shot. Take 7. It's open. Make sure that's all the way around. So it's bleeding off very slowly compared to before. I just think it's not getting a great seal with those plugs in the spark plug hole. So I'm not concerned about the valves. We tested both intake and exhaust ports, and we seem to be getting a good seal there. And so putting in that second plug made this bleed off a lot slower. So that tells me that we're still losing a little bit through the spark plug hole, but I'm not overly concerned about that. And the fact that it's difficult to get this thing off here.
Firmly grasp it!
So I know it's holding good vacuum. We'll see if we get the same thing here on number 2. That's open. This one here. Pulls vacuum. Pulls the valve. So yeah, same thing here. So we are bleeding off a little bit through the spark plug holes. So far, consistency at least. I'd be a little more concerned if we weren't seeing this consistency. Pull good vacuum. Yeah, same thing here. If I put a lot of force on this one, it stops bleeding it off. So that's where we're losing it. That one's holding pretty good. It's bleeding off slowly, but much slower than the others. So there you have it. Pretty cheap way of making a vacuum tester for your head. I think that may have cost, I don't know, maybe 20 bucks or so for all the fittings and the tape, and I already had the vacuum pump from when I installed my mini split, so I didn't have to buy one of those. But there was no need to spend $100 on the ones from Amazon when you could just make your own. There's bottom view. Valves installed. Again, these are stainless steel stellite faced valves, and we are set to move forward with camshaft and cam towers. This is something I've been wanting to get knocked off the list for a while now. Gotta make sure these are clean so I'm not put in the doghouse for a week. But next up, I still gotta polish my camshaft I got to figure out a jig of some kind to set up so that I can do that. Or I could take it somewhere and have a machine shop polish it. I'm sure it'll be dirt cheap. But I haven't figured that part out yet. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the latest in the saga of Widow back here. Earlier in the video, I mentioned I needed to do some camshaft polishing. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a pretty simple concept, but as I have found with everything and every step of the way with this car, nothing has been simple. And that's not just with this car, it was my first one as well, and it's with everyone who has one of these is going through or has gone through. So, I don't know the true mileage of the engine that was pulled out of this car. It was transplanted in here at some point before I bought this car, and I believe, just based on some of the evidence that I found along the way, that this car, or at least this engine, has sat for a long time. When I did all the disassembly and I pulled all the parts apart, I didn't really pay too much attention to the camshaft. I just kind of put it to the side and forgot about it because it was going to be something they need to take care of further down the road. Well, now we've arrived there and come across a few things. So my particular setup is I have the hydraulic head, and these camshafts, brand new, are basically unobtainium. So when I pop this thing out of storage to begin polishing it, I set myself up a little jig using my old cam towers and threaded the bolt into the end of it, put it on a socket, put it on a drill, and kind of just use that as a means of, basically it's a benchtop lathe, if you will. So I started doing some polishing, and I started with the main journals, and everything seemed to be going okay there. I was able to get some shine out of it. I was able to clean up some stuff, but as I was going, I just started noticing that there's more damage to this cam than I think is worth trying to polish out. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So we'll start on this end where I did not do any polishing to try to give you an idea of some of the stuff that I'm dealing with here. So as we rotate this, you can see what appears to be a pretty good bit of pitting. Now this may just be surface level, but it's still pitting nonetheless. So I'll take you down here to where I did do some polishing, and you can see that while I did get some shine out of it, you can see like a lot of this here, still see quite a bit of pitting in here. Now, these cam lobes, it's hard to tell. I don't know if I can get it on camera or not. It's hard to tell, but they do have a bit of an indent right in here before the top. You can see it there a little bit. There's a bit of an indent here, and that's supposed to be there. What it does is it basically gives the slipper rocker one last chance to grab a pocket of oil before it rides up over the top of the lobe, this is the point where it's under the most stress. So in polishing this, a lot of this is getting skipped over, and I tried to conjure up a way to polish this using like an old inner tube as a way to try to keep the sandpaper more or less formed to the cam lobe. Something I saw in a YouTube video, but it just didn't work out the way I had hoped it would. Then on top of that, if you look at this main journal here, there's a pretty good groove in here, and my nail catches on it, and this has already been polished down pretty good. I started with 600 for maybe about 8 to 10 seconds, then I went to 1,000, then I went to 1,500, then I went to 2,000, and it's still, even after all that, Like you can still see. Let me try to get this WD-40 off of here. Like you can see in comparison to this journal that I was able to get that cleaned up fairly good. But you can see that there has been a good bit of junk ran through this that even the sandpaper is not taking out. So that, coupled with a lot of this pitting or surface corrosion, I'm not even sure exactly what it is, but it's not really coming out in the polishing process. These ones here have not been touched. But you can see that that same pattern is still on these ones that have been polished. And even on this journal here, there's some pretty deep scratches in this that go all the way around because some junk has been ran through this, which is not exactly a surprise, considering the overall condition of the engine. When I pulled it out, it did not look great. The body of the car has, I believe, 90,000 miles on it, but whatever engine was put in here was not the original engine, and it had pretty high mileage on it, just based on what I saw in the main and rod bearings that I pulled out of it, and now looking at the camshaft here. And even one of the cam towers here has what appears to be balance shaft bearing material clogging up the oiling hole. So suffice to say, this cam may be salvageable, may not be. I'm not an expert with any of this stuff, especially when it comes to machine work. Hitting it with some high grit sandpaper to clean it up and get a nice finish on it and polish it up with metal polish is one thing. The degree to which I believe I'm going to have to polish this to get any of the pitting or that surface corrosion or whatever it is out of it, and not to mention the fact that those grooves are as deep as they are, I don't think it's worth the effort and the potential to undersize the lobes in the main journals on here and end up causing myself more headaches than what it's worth. Now, I know in most cases those grooves are just a pocket for oil to sit in. I'm not comfortable with putting something like this into an engine that I already have thousands of dollars into and hoping that it works. I scoured the internet for hours and hours looking for a new hydraulic cam. Randy didn't sell them anymore, basically in LA. I Googled and Googled and Googled, and I searched everywhere. The farthest corners of the internet that I could find, parts catalogs, message boards, Facebook groups, searched by the Mitsubishi part numbers, and I could not locate one of these hydraulic cams brand new. So I started resigning to the fact that I was going to have to take this to the machine shop and have them probably weld it and grind it back down and do what they need to do to get it back to where it's supposed to be. However, it comes down to cost analysis here. Is it worth sending a beat up old cam like this to a machine shop and having them put a ton of work and effort into it to get it back to new, or leave that as the nuclear option if I couldn't find a brand new one online? So I reached out to the Conquest Oracle, Randy Gaines, and I asked him if he by chance had a source for one of these hydraulic cams. because there is a difference between the hydraulic and the mechanical cams. The general consensus seems to be that the mechanical cam gives a little more lift, but to me, when there's a difference between two particular setups, there's a reason for that difference, and I'm not the type that's willing to take a chance on just swapping in a mechanical cam in place of a hydraulic and just hoping it works. So Randy got back to me and he said that unfortunately, he didn't have a source for one, but he did provide me with the aftermarket part number for the hydraulic cams, which is CS810. It's a sealed power part number, and sure enough, I looked on eBay and I found one on there, brand new. It was a little over $100 with shipping, so I jumped on it immediately. I figure I bought $50 worth of supplies to try to polish this cam, and I would probably need to buy another 50 just to get through that. So to me, it's worth it to just pull the trigger on, a $100 cam and just call it a day. I always have this thought in the back of my mind that no matter how hard parts are to come by, that there's got to be somebody out there with these parts just kicking around on a shelf somewhere in a garage or in their basement or in the back of a parts room collecting dust, and they don't know what it is, but it's been there for the last 30 years. But this should be a brand new, never used, stock hydraulic camshaft for one of these cars. He had two available. I bought one. Now, this may be one of the last two on the face of the earth, for all we know. And I'm ecstatic that I was able to find one brand new, still in a box, available to purchase for a reasonable price. But I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. I wish I was a little further along than I am now, but all things considered, progress is progress, and that's what matters the most. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next one.